Welcome to today's deep dive, and I am your host, ready to get into something incredibly nostalgic.
And I'm your resident expert, and I have to
Okay.
say, this topic is equal parts nostalgic and, well, genuinely terrifying once you start pulling it apart.
It really is. So be honest with me for a second, and I am talking directly to you, the listener, right now.
Yep.
Did you ever stand in a dark bathroom as a kid, lock the door behind you, stare into the mirror, and chant Bloody Mary 3 times?
Oh, I mean, who didn't? It's like a universal childhood terror.
Right. You were probably holding your breath, your heart was hammering, and you were just waiting for a monster to appear in the glass. And our mission for today's deep dive is to unpack exactly why we do this.
Because it's definitely not just a silly game, right?
Exactly. I actually stumbled onto this recently. I was checking out a Spotify creator page for a show called The Haunting Truth, which explores unconventional mysteries. They brought up the ritual, and it sent me completely down a rabbit hole.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
What kind of sources did you end up pulling?
Oh, a huge stack. We've got deep academic papers like The Mirror's Revenant and Slumber Parties as rites of passage, plus a folklore analysis of the Russian Queen of Spades, some historical encyclopedias, and obviously the pop culture wikis.
That is quite the range.
Yeah, and what I found is that this is this profound intersection of neuroscience, sociology, historical trauma, and like a modern day rite of passage. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the physical reality of standing in front of that mirror.
Right, the actual physical space.
Because the craziest part of the research is that people actually see monsters when they play this game.
They do. It's a fully documented physiological response. I mean, to understand why someone hallucinates a decaying face, we have to look at how the brain applies this real-time horror filter to our vision.
A horror filter, that sounds wild.
It really does. It all begins with a biological quirk called the Troxler effect. This was identified by a physician named Ignaz Paul Vital Troxler way back in 1804.
Okay, 1804, so we've known about this for a while. What exactly does it do?
Well, when you stare at a fixed point in dim light for an extended period, like, locking eyes with your own reflection, the neurons in your retina that process peripheral vision literally tire out.
Wait, really? They just tire out?
Yeah. They adapt to the unchanging visual stimulus, and to conserve energy, they just stop firing.
Wait, so my eyes literally just turn off if I stare too long. That sounds like a massive glitch in human evolution.
It is a bit of a glitch, honestly. The contours of your face start to blur, the background completely fades away, and your visual field just degrades into visual noise.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, the human brain absolutely despises a vacuum, especially when it comes to facial recognition.
You know, it reminds me of semantic satiation.
Oh, like with words.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you stare at a word on a page for so long that it loses all its meaning, you stare at the word spoon until it's just this bizarre collection of alien shapes. But here, we're doing it visually with our own identity.
That is a brilliant analogy. And when that visual satiation happens in the mirror, it triggers a secondary mechanism. Giovanni Caputo, a psychologist, studied this and called it the strange face in the mirror illusion.
Strange face illusion. Okay, what's happening in the brain there?
Basically, the fusiform gyrus, which is the specialized region in your brain responsible for processing faces, starts receiving this incredibly unstable, degrading input from your tired retinas.
And it panics.
It completely panics. It misfires, causing this dissociative identity effect. Your brain tries to piece your face back together using whatever fragments it has, and suddenly your own familiar face morphs into something unrecognizable. Sometimes a stranger or an animal or a monster.
Add in the fact that you're standing in the pitch black, right? And you're already terrified.
Oh, the fear plays a huge role.
Because your brain has this evolutionary drive pareidolia, where it desperately tries to detect faces in the shadows to keep you safe from predators.
Agree.
So your visual cortex is panicking, the room is dark, and your brain is essentially forced to fill in the blanks to keep you alive. And because you just chanted Bloody Mary, your brain uses that expectant anxiety to paint a terrifying bloody picture right over your blurred reflection.
Yep, the environment completely primes the hallucination. You've essentially hacked your own nervous system. You demanded horror, so your brain manufactures it out of visual static.
Okay, so the neuroscience perfectly explains the visual glitch. I totally get why the face morphs.
Right.
But a glitch is just blurry shapes. Why does every kid across America see the exact same bloody woman? Like, science can't explain why the hallucination is wearing 16th century clothing.
That is very true.
If the brain is just applying a real-time horror filter based on our expectations, where does the blueprint for this specific monster come from?
That is the crucial question. And it takes us straight from the physical science into the historical origins. because Bloody Mary isn't one single historical figure.
She's not.
No. What's fascinating here is that she operates like a folklore Wikipedia page that's been edited by thousands of terrified teenagers over 3 centuries.
Oh, I love that. A folklore Wikipedia page.
Yeah, folklorists actually have a specific term for this. They call it a polylegend. She is a composite identity stitched together from generations of cultural anxiety.
Okay, so let's look at the most famous edit to that Wikipedia page, Mary Tudor, or Mary the First of England.
Yes, going back to the mid-1500s. Now, Mary I earned the nickname Bloody Mary because of her brutal persecution of Protestants. She burned roughly 300 dissenters at the stake.
Which is horrific.
Yeah.
But the sources noted that the political violence, as gruesome as it was, isn't actually where the mirror ritual gets its most chilling details.
No, it's not. Those details actually come from her tragic medical history.
Yeah, this part of the research was incredibly sad to read.
It really is heartbreaking. Mary suffered 2 well-documented phantom pregnancies, or pseudocyesis, in 1554 and 1557.
Phantom pregnancies.
Yeah. She exhibited severe physical signs of pregnancy. Her court celebrated, but no child was ever born. She eventually died childless, without an heir.
I mean, think about the psychological weight of that in the 1500s, living out that kind of trauma on a public stage.
Absolutely devastating.
But over the centuries, society took that profound medical tragedy and warped it into this horrific playground game. That history is the direct root of the cruel chanting variations kids use today.
Right, because they don't just say her name.
Exactly. They chant, "I stole your baby" or "I killed your baby," deliberately trying to provoke a grieving spirit.
It is a really dark, distorted reflection of historical trauma. And the legend doesn't stop with Mary Tudor. Over time, it absorbs Elizabeth Bathory.
The Hungarian blood countess.
Exactly, from the late 16th century. She was accused of murdering hundreds of young women. Some legends claim up to 650.
650? That's insane.
And she supposedly bathed in their virgin blood to preserve her youth.
Which introduces the extreme vanity aspect. The mirror itself, the obsession with eternal youth, and the stories of the bathroom mirror literally dripping with blood when the ritual goes wrong. You have Mary's grief combined with Bathory's gore.
Yes, and then the legend crosses the Atlantic to the United States and absorbs entirely new traumas. Depending on the region, she often morphs into Mary Worth.
Oh, I found a hyper-local variant of Mary Worth from Wadsworth, Illinois that absolutely blew my mind.
Oh, the Wadsworth one is intense.
In this version, she isn't a queen or a countess at all. She is an 1860s figure who lived near the Underground Railroad. The local legend claims she captured escaping enslaved people, used them in dark rituals, and was eventually lynched by the townspeople.
Which is such a dark reflection of American history.
It really just shows how this poly-legend acts like a sponge. Society seems to bundle up all its anxieties about powerful, infertile, or deviant women, mixes in local racial traumas and moral panics, and stuffs it all into one ultimate mirror ghost.
That's spot on. The mirror becomes a container for whatever a specific culture finds most terrifying or shameful at that moment in time.
But hold on. Because mirrors weren't always used for horror, how did we get from just looking in a mirror to summoning a vengeance demon?
Well, we have to look at catoptromancy.
Catoptromancy.
Yeah, it's the ancient practice of mirror divination. Mirrors have almost always been viewed as threshold objects, a literal boundary between the physical world and the spirit realm. But if we jump forward to the Victorian era, mirror gazing wasn't about blood or horror at all. It was actually about romance.
Romance. Staring into a dark room alone was romantic.
It was a form of fortune-telling. Robert Burns wrote a poem in 1786 called Halloween, and it details how young women would perform these rituals.
Okay, what did they do?
A girl would go into a dark room, perhaps eating an apple or brushing her hair, and gaze into a mirror. She wasn't looking for a monster. She was hoping to catch a glimpse of the face of her future husband looking over her shoulder.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, so they were basically using a mirror as a Victorian Tinder.
Basically, yes.
But what happens if there wasn't a match?
Well, the stakes were incredibly high. Folklore dictated that if the woman was destined to die unmarried, she obviously wouldn't see a husband. Instead, she would see the Grim Reaper, or a skull, peering over her shoulder.
Talk about a high-stress dating app.
Yeah.
You're either getting a husband or you're dying alone, and the mirror is going to tell you which one tonight.
Very high stakes.
And the sources even mention that linguists think the name Mary in Bloody Mary might just be a linguistic corruption of the word Mary.
Yes.
Like you're chanting Mary, Mary, Mary into the glass to see your fate, and over decades of whispering, it turned into Mary.
Exactly. And consider the psychological shift there. We move from domestic security, the hope of marriage, straight
Hmm.
into existential dread and death.
Wow.
That pivot perfectly sets the stage for the ritual's modern evolution. It shifted from young Victorian women looking for husbands to preteens and adolescents looking for a thrill. Which brings us to the ultimate laboratory for this kind of folklore,
The slumber party.
the slumber party.
Yes. Why is it always tweens, and usually girls, doing this in the bathroom at 1 a.m.? I mean, think about how terrifying middle school was. Your body is changing, the social hierarchy is absolutely brutal. Playing a ghost game is almost a relief compared to going to 7th grade gym class.
You're not wrong. And folklorist Alan Dundas proposed a groundbreaking psychoanalytic theory about exactly this back in 1998.
What did he say?
He pointed out the core elements. The ritual happens in a bathroom, it involves the sudden appearance of blood, and it's performed almost exclusively by prepubescent girls. Dundas argues that Bloody Mary is a symbolic, unconscious reflection of menarche, the first menstrual cycle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it deals with all the profound anxieties surrounding bodily changes and puberty.
I mean, that makes an uncomfortable amount of sense. The bathroom is the space where you have to deal with these private, often scary bodily functions.
Exactly.
And the slumber party itself operates in what sociologists call a liminal space.
Right, a threshold
You're
space.
staying up all night, away from the watchful eyes of adults, breaking all the normal rules of time and behavior. You're playing games like MASH to predict your future, or using Ouija boards, or doing the light as a feather, stiff as a board levitation trick.
Which is all about engaging in this trance-like group synchronization.
Yeah.
And that synchronization builds a concept known as communitas. Through rhythmic chanting and shared fear, these girls form a deep transpersonal bond. Because you have to remember that in modern Western society, we lack formal puberty rituals.
We really do.
We don't have official, culturally sanctioned ceremonies to mark the terrifying transition from childhood to adulthood. So adolescents naturally invent their own.
It's like a vernacular vision quest.
That's a great way to put it.
A slumber party is this safe container to test your bravery, establish where you stand in the social hierarchy, and face what scholars call the abject feminine self. You face the monster in the mirror, but you have your friends waiting right outside the door to catch you if you fall.
And if we look cross-culturally, we see parallels to this everywhere. It is a fundamental human need.
Like where?
Well, in certain Native American traditions, like the Hoopa Moon Lodges, young women at puberty would undergo a period of seclusion that culminated in gazing into water-filled abalone shells to seek a vision.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Or look at various African female initiation ceremonies that involve facing orchestrated fears under the guidance of older women. The American slumber party is doing the exact same cultural work, just with sleeping bags and a bathroom mirror.
Which makes me wonder, is this specific type of mirror anxiety strictly a North American phenomenon? I mean, do kids in other countries have their own version of Bloody Mary that they use to process growing up?
They absolutely do, and this is where we see the legend adapt to fit local cultural anxieties. Folklorists call these adaptations ecotypes.
Ecotypes. Okay.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we find that mirrors, water, and bathrooms are universal triggers for the human imagination. Take the Catholic ecotype found in Newfoundland, which was heavily researched by Laura Winter.
Oh, the parochial school version. This one is fascinating because the Tudor queen completely disappears.
She does. In that highly religious environment, Bloody Mary becomes a demonic nun.
A demonic nun, of course.
And crucially, the ritual is said to only work if you have sinned or harbor a guilty secret.
Wow, think about what that implies. The mirror transforms from a simple magical portal into an instrument of moral surveillance and religious guilt.
Exactly. And if the demonic nun attacks, standard folklore remedies like simply turning on the bathroom lights don't work. You need rosary beads or holy water to break the connection.
It completely adapts to what the kids in that specific culture are taught to fear most sin and divine punishment. What about outside the West?
In Japan, you have Hanako-san. She haunts the third stall of the third-floor school restroom.
But you don't use a mirror for her.
No.
Yeah.
You summon her by knocking 3 times and asking if she's there. She's usually described as a young girl in a red skirt, sometimes a victim of abuse, but very often described as a victim of World War II air raids.
Wait, World War II air raids? Why would an air raid victim haunt a school bathroom?
Because during the fire bombings, schools were often targeted or caught in the crossfire. The school bathroom, which is normally a sanctuary or a hiding place for a child, suddenly became a tomb.
Oh, that is incredibly dark.
So the ghost of Hanako-san isn't just a spooky girl. She's a manifestation of a generation's trauma about the sudden destruction of safe spaces.
The history just bleeds right through the ghost story. And then in Russia, there is the Queen of Spades, or Pikovaya Dama. This one is wild because it merges Western Bloody Mary tropes with an old Alexander Pushkin story.
And bizarrely, Soviet-era Alice in Wonderland cartoons from the early 1980s.
The 1981 and 82 cartoons? Yes. The Russian ritual is incredibly elaborate, too. You don't just chant a name.
No, you have to take a bar of soap and physically draw a door and a staircase on the mirror in a dark room.
Which is so specific.
Right? And the entity, a vengeful woman, is said to open the drawn door and physically descend the soap stairs to strangle the summoner.
And the only way to save yourself is to quickly wipe away the bottom step before she reaches the bottom.
Exactly.
Why is it so complicated compared to just saying a name?
Well, it reflects a cultural affinity for complex, rule-based systems, even in folklore. It's almost like a terrifying high-stakes puzzle played out right in your bathroom.
I just marvel at how these oral traditions survive and mutate depending on whose mouth they're in. But kids aren't just whispering at slumber parties anymore. How has the digital age and pop culture mutated Bloody Mary today?
Oh, modern media doesn't just passively record folklore. It actively rewrites the rules. A prime example is the TV show Supernatural.
Oh, what, from 2005?
Yes. They aired an episode where the Bloody Mary entity named Mary Worthington only attacked people who were harboring a secret guilt about causing someone's death.
Oh, right.
And her weakness in the show was showing her her own reflection to force her to judge herself.
And the sources show that as soon as that episode aired, kids immediately adopted those Hollywood rules into their real-life playground folklore. Suddenly, Bloody Mary only came after you if you were a liar or a sinner.
Yep, the playground rules changed overnight. Or take the show The Haunting Hour, which added this Bathory-esque motif of face-stealing. The mirror ghost would steal the faces of pretty girls to critique modern beauty standards.
Pop culture feeds the folklore, and the folklore feeds pop culture right back.
It's a continuous feedback loop. But the most significant shift is happening right now. Folklorists have a term for it: digital ostension.
Digital ostension, what does that mean exactly?
It's when a myth isn't just told, but actively performed and broadcasted in real time.
Oh, you mean the YouTube and TikTok 3 a.m. Devil's Hour challenges?
Exactly. Adolescents are no longer performing this ritual in the private liminal space of a slumber party with 3 close friends. They are holding smartphones in the dark, recording themselves performing the ritual and broadcasting it to a global, virtual audience of millions.
Which is brilliant and terrifying because the smartphone's front-facing camera in a dark room is the ultimate modern mirror. Think about it. You're staring at your own illuminated face on a glowing screen in a pitch-black room.
Yes.
It creates the exact same visual conditions for the Troxler effect and the strange face illusion that we talked about at the beginning. But now, instead of proving your bravery to your best friend in a sleeping bag, you're proving it to strangers on the internet.
The technology has completely changed, but the underlying psychological mechanism, that deep human need to confront the uncanny, remains entirely intact.
So what does this all mean? I mean, we've gone from tire retinas and misfiring brain processing to bloody Tudor queens and the Underground Railroad, to Victorian Tinder, to Russian soap stairs, and finally to modern TikTok challenges.
It means that humans, especially young humans, have a profound need for emotional regulation. The Bloody Mary ritual, in all its forms across the globe, provides a theater of fear.
A theater of fear. I like that.
Yeah, it is a voluntary, highly controlled environment where young people can experience intense, visceral terror. But crucially, it's a terror they control.
Right, they can just end it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can always break the spell by simply turning on the bathroom lights. It offers immediate relief. It's a way to practice feeling fear and surviving it, which is an essential skill as they navigate the incredibly confusing, often frightening transition from childhood into adulthood.
It's a safe way to play with the dark. So if you are listening to this right now and you're remembering standing in that dark bathroom, clutching the edge of the sink, whispering a name into the glass, know that you weren't just goofing off.
I don't know.
You weren't just playing a silly game. You were participating in a deeply rooted cross-cultural initiation rite. You were tapping into a legacy of human psychology and shared history that stretches back centuries.
You were engaging in one of the oldest human traditions, looking into the unknown and daring it to look back.
Absolutely. So next time you catch your reflection in a dimly lit room, ask yourself, are you just seeing yourself? Or are you looking at a composite of the collective fears, hidden histories, and shared stories of our entire culture waiting just on the other side of the glass?